Wave to the light. Chris Anthony, Streams of Light podcast, coming to you from beautiful San Juan Capistrano on a sunny Wednesday afternoon. It's just, beautiful day here in Southern California. We are live streaming on 4 services today. We are new on Twitter, second time today on Twitter, Facebook Live. Make sure that you follow, like, subscribe to all the respective channels. We're on Twitch. Twitch is a newer one for me too. It's full of mostly gamers, and then lots of like sexy ladies at night in their bedrooms with cute clothes on, and
those are the Twitchers.
They're not the Twitchers as we would think of as like tweakers, but the Twitch guys, you know, they're gaming, and right now there's ladies on Twitch in their bedroom, and I don't know why. I'm just telling you the truth. Okay, this is reality. There's ladies in their bedroom, and they've got candles and essential oils, and they've got a cute outfit on, and they've got cool music playing in the background. So I don't know how we fit into Twitch, but we're going to try it for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
You say so.
So if you're, again, welcome to Streams of Light podcast. I'm Chris Anthony, and I've got Briand.
Through that, yes.
I threw you a curveball. Religion Pt2. Or you can call him Brie. Good friend of mine for many years now. And if you're watching on YouTube Live, go down to the subscribe button and maybe even choose alerts and say notify always. That way you'll always know when we're going live. If you're watching on Facebook Live, please like the page and make a comment. Actually, in any of the 4 platforms we're on, we would love to hear some feedback. I'll open up my chat window. I'm hoping that my fancy program here will integrate all the chats from all 4 platforms. If it did, I would be amazed. As a former IT guy, if I could pull in chats from all 4 platforms,
that'd be great.
I think it would be great, but I'm not convinced.
You're not, okay.
Well, you know what I think I have to do? I think I have to go out and buy another third-party program.
They make you do it that way.
And then once I buy another third-party program, oh no, we got Macy coming. She's on the prowl. Another third-party program, and that'll probably and then I log into all the chat platforms, and then it's all in one environment. So we got the Macy the cat in studio today, which I think is kind of cool. I've always wanted everyone to see Macy the cat. She's playing with my computer right now.
They might have a chance to
here. Yeah, I think she's gonna. Let's see if she walks. Here she goes. Macy, come over here. I want everyone to see you, Macy. You're gonna make us famous. Come over here. Come see Brianna.
She might knock over the.
She's rubbing up against the mic stands, the camera. Here she comes. See, there she is. Everybody.
Here. This way.
No, she's. Oh, there's a tail. See, she's a Savannah cat.
Whoa.
You saw?
She took me out.
Did she take you out? So today we have a pretty cool podcast. Actually, you know, when I've promoted the title on a couple other podcasts, I'd have to say that it didn't sound fun because the title is officially Why I Left Organized Religion.
It sounded like a lot of work, didn't it?
It sounds like a lot of work, and it sounds like a downer conversation. I just actually had a podcast on seeing the beauty in life, so this is kind of weird to go into a little bit of. Yeah, it's a little bit negative, but the title is Why I Left Religion Part 2, and it is on judgmentalism. I just felt like this is a subject that's kind of taboo.
Well, you know, Chris, when you said it sounded a little negative, I completely disagree with you on that.
You do? Okay, tell me why.
Well, just the fact that when I became most spiritual in my life was the time that I actually left organized religion, and that was at the... You don't have
to give names to churches.
No, I won't do that. That it's more fun if you don't.
Leaves mystery.
It's like I think he's talking about that.
I think Oh, I know that guy. I know where he went.
So why I say that is because it was for myself. When I left organized religion, I had been born into that religion. My parents had belonged to it. I always attended. I did everything. I was in the pew. I did everything I was supposed to do, and everything was fine. It was really wasn't so much a leaving as it was a realizing, as I told my father later in life, that it was that I was just continuing kind of where he left off, and digging into God's word, and there was more, and I was embracing that. And just to give you a time frame, that was when I was in, let's see, that would be, I was probably more like around 14 or so, and not driving yet, because we drive at 16 here in California. I think that was it.
Yeah.
So about 14, and that was at the heyday of the Jesus movement. And yeah, I mean, and that was a new kind of experience for a lot of people, and it was not all that organized, and the people in it were not your typical religious people that you would see.
Right.
And
They all kind of looked like Jesus back then, didn't they?
they pretty much all looked like Jesus, and even more, yes.
Yeah,
and,
more than today, I would think.
And yeah, that's what I signed up for, was the not to just punch a card every Sunday, and to actually have an experience that it seemed like it enlivened my soul and gave me joy.
I like that.
And there's this part to it that played a big part, and I think that's been missing in today's organized religion, and that is what they call, you can call it the Holy Spirit, and spirit itself,
Right.
as opposed to what I asked a young man when I had my experience, was, well, when I told him, you know what, but there's things that I do that I don't want to do now. And he goes, just do all those things, and God he'll tug on your heart, and he'll give you the strength when you call on him to, go down that right path, and just not worry about it. That it wasn't just a roadmap of stop and go, and like you had to look it up to see if this was, because it was a spirit.
Yeah.
It's truth,
So here's the thing. I want to say this up front in the beginning, because it's really important for me to sort of give my own, I don't want to say disclaimer, but it's important for me to take care of, almost like insurance policies here. And I want to say up front that I'm not recommending that anyone leave any organized religious group.
Yeah.
I'm not recommending that you leave church, temple, or any spiritual community. I'm only here, and Brianne as well, to share our experiences, and even my experience is, our experiences vary from person to person. So even two people sitting here on this podcast, my experience is going to be different than Brianne. So I just wanted to say that up front. This is not about division. It's not about abandoning a group and not working things out or anything like that. I'm not promoting running or anything like that. What I wanted to talk about today was, I wanted to talk about the very things that I feel like spirituality promotes. Sometimes you get the antithesis in these organized groups, and that is a fascinating thing. As a matter of fact, as I was thinking about, what should we start off with? What could we talk about? I thought, the first thing that came to my mind is it's almost like what I would call the voice of condemnation in our own minds. That's something that we all live with, and it could have came from a parent. It could have came from a pastor, priest, or a cleric, or someone in the clergy, or some sort of spiritual leader. But we oftentimes, most human beings struggle with that voice in our own head. And that voice in our own head will oftentimes say, you're not good enough. You really screwed up on that one.
I've heard that voice.
Yeah,
before.
I think we all, you think?
You're not good enough.
Yeah, I think we've all heard that before. So I think here, as I was thinking about this, I thought about, wow, we all have that voice in our head that goes, you're not good enough, or look at how terrible that is, so on and so forth. And then sometimes what happens, and this is just being in any collective group. It doesn't necessarily need to be a spiritual collective. When I look at churches, temples, and organized religion, I think of it as a spiritual collection of people, a collective of people. And we see this not only in spiritual collectives, but we also see it in what I would call any sociological collective out there. So these kind of mores and values, which are sometimes critical, and the collective believes this. This is in universities. It's in workplaces. Wherever you have people, you have these elements. So you will never really get away from these things. But what I wanted to talk about when we think about spirituality, I wanted to talk about how condemnation and judgmentalism are actually the exact opposite of what's intended in these groups. That doesn't mean that there has to be perfection by all means. But as a collective, when you get a bunch of people in a building and you get a leader who is not necessarily happy with themselves, they've had, maybe they haven't necessarily had any spiritual awakenings, and they feel like morality is the way to the kingdom, so to speak. Morality is the way to live. A lot of times, those folks who are leading these spiritual collectives can be very, very much down on their own people. And in turn, those people go out and they reproduce this very judgmental state. Now, I want to state up front that I come from a Christian background, both Protestant and Catholic. And I want to state up front that I firmly believe that the mission of those original founders, that being, of course, Jesus and his followers, was completely null and void of judgmentalism. I want to go on the record for saying that. Matter of fact, in the old King James version of the Gospels and the Bible, Jesus said, "Judge not, lest you be judged." And then he followed it up with, just in case there was any concern, he follows it up with, "Condemn not, lest you yourselves be condemned." Now, we can do the double whammy on this. We can sit back today and talk about how some of these spiritual groups are really bad people and so on and so forth. And we can, it's a two-edged sword, isn't it?
We can go down that path too.
We could start condemning the condemners. It's a double entendre. It's a double whammy. It's a two-edged sword. What the heck? What do you think about that?
I think that's something to keep in the back of your mind.
Of course.
Yeah. Don't go that way.
So even though I stand for the non-judgmental, non-condemning gathering of spiritual collectives, the most important thing to do is to do our best not to strike back. I think that's what the Christ said. He said, don't, return blow for blow. So if someone condemns you, don't condemn them back. That is, oh my gosh, it's so hard to be awake to the point where we realize that even if someone was really hard on us, or if we had a very bad experience at a organized gathering of sorts of spiritual, religion or whatever, it's important for us not to take eye for eye and tooth for tooth. And so here's what I think. I think that freedom in our own lives, like when you see someone really free, you can see it on their face. And freedom.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
And I've seen it.
Yeah. Liberty and non-judgmentalism, I believe, are a sign of enlightenment.
And I don't know that it's not a static thing, or it's not something that people attain that type of nirvana where they have that joy, that peace, and what you were just saying. And it's something that is so powerful, though, when you see it. I look back at and think of particular people over the years that I've known at moments when God's Spirit was heavy upon them, and thus it was so strong, it was touching me. And those moments that I've seen these people, I can still remember their faces, and this is like going back decades. So
those were experiences that got etched into your mind and your memory. I love that. And I want to say,
very real.
There's people out there that have different terminology for these things. Some people might say God spirit. Other people might say, like Kundalini Shakti or Nirvana, or there's all these different terms in the different faith families across the earth. And so, but I think what Brian said is so important, because he said, basically, whenever you come into contact with someone who's sort of drenched in that divine love, spirit, freedom, it spills over. It spills over on you. And that's that's a beautiful thing. And there's not 1 ounce of criticism or judgmentalism in that reality that I've experienced myself.
Oh no, I agree. And I, that spilling over, it's almost like it's a, Christ talks about your cup runneth over. And we talk about, in Acts, it talks about the infilling of the Holy Spirit, to where the people outside of the upper room were thinking that these men were drunk because they were speaking in other tongues and all of that. And one of the reasons that even comes up is because, think about it this way. Our God is a mighty God. He's the creator of everything. He's always been. He always will be. He's, to some of us, he is everything. And he wants to sup and be with us and hang out. And you are adopted into this family. Children, have joy. Life is rough, but when you think about the things you were taught by God's Spirit, and they resonate and they always come back. Let's face it, the times that we feel we're far away, he hasn't gone anywhere. We might have drifted and our heart's gone away. So, this is a beautiful thing. Let's just continue to chat like this. I love this.
One of the things that I realized when I saw, the organizational structure of some of the spiritual groups, was I noticed that there was these, what I would call boxes, and they were sort of man-made containers, mental constructs, if you will, where people said, hey, this is the parameters of who we are, what we believe, so on and so forth. And I get that. A lot of times when you're in a group, you sort of need a mission statement. You need, kind of a set of rules, social, rules for engagement, so on and so forth. And here's what we, mission statements are, oftentimes, in churches, for example, will be, the creeds, I believe in one God, and so on and so forth. And these are creeds. So, but here's what I wanted to say. One thing I've noticed in the world of the spiritual collectives that I've seen is that oftentimes the boxes, these mental constructs, or these collective agreements that these groups have, that these boxes become very narrow. And what happens is the narrowness of the boxes that we've created, of like, this is how it has to look and this is how it has to be, and if it's not this way, then it's not the right way. That kind of experience that I've seen in some of these groups leads to a rigidity and a lack of openness. And what I've found is, this is what I've found in my spiritual pursuit over a lifetime. I've found that during times of movement, where you would call it, like maybe you'd say the Spirit is moving, or times of awakening, or however we want to call it, whatever kind of term we want to use, that there is such creativity and awe, and I want to say no wall, like a boundaryless, like no boundaries, in the sense of, and I know what some of these folks would say, oh, well, you can't have wickedness. I know, I get that, let's not hurt each other. I mean, that's all the sages have said that. Do what's right. But that's not what I've seen. Is things inexplicable, things that when these movements take place and there's major awakenings and people are getting touched and things are happening and people are feeling better in their bodies, and sometimes they're saying, hey, I got healed or whatever it is, I've noticed that there's this creativity and this awe, and there's this sense of greater than me and the organization and even my conceptual idea. I think
it's because there becomes a, and I think most pastors would agree with what I was about to say, is that because it becomes less about you, myself, and about the other person and everyone around you. And that's because you have this blessed assurance and it's real in your heart that you'll be okay, and you have nowhere to go except to spill out your joy and what you know with other people. And when they reject it, or when they give you a different answer than you were expecting, it's not with you don't come back with some kind of a clever answer or something, but instead you come back with this love that is and this wisdom that God sometimes will give you right on the spot, that is just overwhelming even for them. I remember as a young in high school, and I was kind of a shy, timid young man, but I used to, believe it or not, I used to share a lot and preach and to people who would listen. And I was one of those that would always carry. Today I'd have my phone in my pocket, but I would carry a big, heavy Bible, and it was only because I had.
Were you a Bible thumper?
I never thumped it.
But you said you were preaching and you were carrying a heavy Bible.
Yeah,
that sounds like Bible thumping to me.
Yeah, and it was, but it was.
Hey, look, it's 2021. We got to laugh about this.
Yes,
we got to.
I had one of those. And,
come on, dude.
Everything was in there. In fact, stuck in there. That.
What do you mean everything was in there? Is this like George Costanza's
all
wallet?
the important things that were in my Bible and
like
not
coupons
anywhere
and
else.
Stuff? Like your driver's license. So it was like George Costanza's wallet. It was like this big So it was a big Bible, and then it had stuff stuck in it.
Well, what I was going to get at was
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just trying to lighten it up.
When I would share my faith with other young people, and we're like 15 years old, and I'd share my faith. I actually, some people would reject me, and I would kind of smile to myself because I knew that God's love was still like following them. That might sound interesting, but I didn't take it as they're rejecting me or anything. And I didn't really expect them to like accept me. I wanted them to just hear this message. But I'll never forget the young lady that I would always, and she had different thoughts about Christ and all that. And it was about, I think, 2 years after high school, we'd gone to college and all that. And I was at some event somewhere. And this young lady came up to me. And she grabbed me by the shoulders and she looked me in the face. I can't even remember her name, but she looked at me and she was overflowing with joy. And all she says to me, this is the student that I used to preach to in one of our classes. I think it was, I can't remember which one. And she just looks at me and goes, "You were right. You were so right." And she had found, and we didn't go into details, but she had found, I believe, a faith in Christ. And, but I remember how it was I always just loved on her. Yeah, it wasn't like my job to fix her. It was me to love on her, and then God somehow used somebody with much more wisdom than myself, and I'm sure she's in the right place that she needs to be today. So, I think what you were saying about the, you're given your background and, the rejection or the condemnation that people will have about people not agreeing with them, and these other collectives that aren't based on religion and faith like that. I don't really think you can put them in the same box, though, because they're just not. Well, for instance, football is a great thing; it's a wonderful sport. If you're in Europe, though, they go, "That's not football."
Yeah. I'll give you an example of what I meant with other social gatherings. A friend of mine is a geologist, and he's part of a scientific community in San Diego, and they go out to the desert and they record fault activity. And he at one point had a opinion about this one area that the community basically said, oh, these things right here, they're not actually faults. And he went out there and did his own work on it. And he came back and said, no, these are faults. And, he started to share his experience with me. And I thought, my gosh, it sounds to me like a church I was in, because these people just lambasted him, and they he wasn't keeping in with the collective agreement of, the parameters and so on and so forth. He was kind of seen as I would say, heretic, if we use a spiritual term. But anyways, I wanted to say it. That's when I realized, oh, this is not just a church or religious anomaly. This is mankind. This is social. This is a social interaction thing. So that's what I meant by that. But yeah, not necessarily to bring it into football or whatever. But I met some football people who are pretty darn religious about like Tom Brady or the Dallas Cowboys or whatever. So. Go figure. He is, I think,
the greatest quarterback that ever lived.
Please don't start with that. What about the cheating? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so here's the thing. You and I are, we have a similar background, and we're in.
But we also don't have,
No, we don't agree on everything.
We don't agree on everything.
Yeah. And so this is the bottom line that I wanted to make before we close out today, because I feel like what ends up happening in any group, whether it's a church group or not, or a geologist, like an earthquake fault group or something like that, is when the rigid parameters of the boxes of the mental constructs, and these are the collective agreements, when those things are so well established, what I end up seeing in the end, and I'm sure my friend saw this with the fault lines and all that, is I see this elitist mentality. And this is, I think, the opposite of spirituality, the opposite of humility, the opposite, like, let's look at Christianity. Jesus said, hey, don't lord it over your buddies like the outsiders do, like whoever wants to be greatest, be the servant of all, and he said things like,
kind of does go against that, doesn't it?
It does. There's so many things. He said, hey, learn about me. I'm meek and I'm lowly of heart. I'm not here to like.
Oh, so that's why he's always given us examples of how to be.
Yeah, he was.
That was all part of it.
That was all part of it. And I'm trying to say something. I mean, I don't want to just go out and slap people in the face, Brian, but I want to say that there are so many spiritual groups that seem to be living in, like spiritual blindness, and they're doing the exact opposite of what their leader said. He said, don't judge unless, of course, you want to be judged. Don't condemn unless, of course, you want to be condemned. And they're doing those things, and now they've got elitist mentality, like we're better. In other words, if you want to get the truth, if you want to get the stuff, we've got the, what's that? The chesba? What's that term? The chesba?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I think it's a Jewish term.
Yeah, I think you're right. But you not being Jewish,
I probably shouldn't use it. Can I use it? Can I borrow it?
You can borrow it.
Yeah,
but you got to know it.
If you want the chesba, then come here to argue. See, that's what I think. Okay, that's all I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that maybe we need to take a step back and start looking at some of the commands of the spiritual teachers throughout the ages, and really be honest with ourselves and say, Are we really practicing these things in truth, or have we drifted? It's almost like when we're surfing, when you and I are out surfing, if we go to surf at San Clemente Pier and it's a big swell, and let's say there's a Northwest mix or whatever, you know as well as I do that, like at the San Clemente Pier, sometimes we'll get pushed down by the clock tower, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes if you don't look at the shore from time to time, sometimes you have to paddle like almost nonstop. It's easy to drift and not know you're drifting. We learn that from being seafaring ocean people.
Okay.
That's where I'm going with that. I've got, as long as I can keep my focus and know, the point I was trying to make, I'm going to get there. But I'm just saying sometimes we drift in life.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, sometimes you need to look at the shore every once in a while to see where you're at.
What's the shore? What's the shore? Tell me what the shore is. Define it in the parable, Breon. What's the shore?
I don't know.
It's the sacred text. It's the wisdom teachings. That's the shore. Be meek, lowly of heart. That's what I'm saying.
So, I knew we were going to have this conversation, and I asked God to give me something.
Okay. Did you get the delivery?
And he delivered.
Did it get delivered?
Yes, he delivered it.
Airmail? Airmail?
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah. It's he's not far away.
Okay. Number one, I am near.
And it has to do, we were talking about the condemnation. But just in that parable of the Good Samaritan, you have the people that you would normally think would have all the answers, and the people that you're talking about who would be the first ones to point a finger saying you're not doing that right. And what do they do in the parable? If I remember, they, instead of going and helping the man,
they walk around him.
I love how they don't go and call anybody even.
No.
And in fact, if you are, I'm lifeguard certified now. And now
congratulations.
But it's a big responsibility, because now when I see if I'm in something happens and there's people that need help,
you can do it.
And I want to render my services. And
I like that. So
that brings up a point. If you are a spiritual, healthy person and you're actually somewhat, like you were saying, that you might think that you have something to share, and then you go around them. The man's laying there, he's beaten, he's in the dirt.
Left for dead,
and you go around. And then it wasn't just one.
There was a bunch of them.
There was another one that goes around.
I think 2 or 3.
And, that's kind of like the word, and so then the Samaritan, just for those that don't remember the story, the Samaritan doesn't go around. And now Samaritans, I guess, were from let's just say they're from a zip code that's not quite, not
hot on the real estate list.
Yeah, it's not on the real estate. It's, there's a lot of, it's a less expensive zip code. And that's who the Samaritans were. And this guy, I was thinking about this, so he picks him up, and then he bandages him up and gives him cool water and all that. But then he takes him to an inn, and he tells the innkeeper that, well, go ahead and here's some money. So just take care of him and feed him, and, all those rudimentary things that have to happen so you live.
Yeah.
So he walks a little bit in this man's shoes by helping him. In other words, he doesn't just look at him and go, well, why did that happen?
Yeah.
Why were you there in the first place? You should have known better.
Right.
Why didn't you do that in the first place?
Right.
And instead of just giving words and trying to fix it with your theology,
he actually did something.
He spent time with him.
Yeah.
And he invested in him.
Yep.
And loved on him.
Right.
That's what that is. That's love with action.
Yeah.
And that's love to a stranger.
Right.
I mean, the other cool part about that parable, if you guys haven't read it lately, and probably haven't, because it's, it's one of the, the top 10, and it's not something that, as you get more spiritual in Christianity, you're off to other deeper. We used to call it meat. We got to get down into the meat. Well, I love the part where it's just saying that that the person that asked Jesus in the first place, when Jesus starts telling this story, was like, how do I inherit eternal life?
He tells the story of the Good
And
Samaritan.
he tells the story, this is what you do. And then and the guy that's fallen down, he goes, Jesus says, well, you love God. The answer was that you love God with all your heart and you love your neighbor as yourself. And the guy says, well, who's my neighbor?
And
this
the
guy
story,
he's the neighbor.
Yeah.
And so I think of, actually we should maybe look at it this way. Not me. Each one of us is listening to this is your neighbor is that person.
Anyone in need, no matter what their zip code is.
Yeah, but specifically, your neighbor is that person that you have that disagreement with. They don't fit into your box, and God's put them in your path. And, it might be that you just need to, instead of hitting them over the head or excluding them from your group, it might be that you need to spend time with them. You might have to spend phone calls and coffee and life, as opposed to a preach or just an excommunication from your circle of friends.
Yeah. Hey, you used the number one finger. You should have. You could have used the middle finger.
No, but it's true.
It is true.
And that's a really easy way to. But it's not. That's not the way of the Spirit. It's not what Jesus told us how to be. And if that's what you do, you need to stop that, because we've all done it. So no condemnation.
No, but yeah, you know what I like about the way, you brought this story out, and I'm doing my best not to quote too many like Bible verses, for example, because I don't want the people who don't read the Bible.
But you do know them. I know.
I know them, and I did quote the judge not, just because I felt like there was a big violation there that needed to be pointed out. But what I love, the fact that here's what I love about the fact that you talked about this story is that guy, that Samaritan, was outside of the accepted norm. I know a little bit about Bible history. The Samaritans were what we call a half breed of Jew. And in the Jewish culture, if you were, a partial breed, you just weren't quite the real enchilada. And so I believe they were a mixture of Jewish and I think I didn't know that. I think it was a Syrian Jewish mix, and I think it had to do with one of the captivities that happened. One of the very real things in life. So there was a time when they went to war and Syria took the Israelites captive.
That's right.
So are all those kids who came out of those births from the captivity, are they really condemned? I love that you brought this out, because the attitude of the time was like, those are dirty Samaritans. They actually didn't practice the Jewish temple.
Oh, yeah, they probably never let him forget it. Huh?
They didn't even practice Judaism in Jerusalem. They practiced on this other mountain. And that's why when Jesus went to talk to the Samaritan woman, her first question was, hey, I want to ask you a question. You guys say we need to practice, temple in Jerusalem. Because they had their own temple thing set up, right? But here's the thing. The people of the day who felt like they were in God's favor, in the in-group, they felt like those people are outsiders. And I see the same problem today in spiritual collectives where, those guys are outside. Like they're not Christians, or they're not Catholics, or they're not this, or they're not that. And we're better than them, that elitist, or, I don't want, like the priest. One of the guys who went around him was a priest. Why did he go around him? Well, he didn't.
Yeah, you can't go around.
He didn't want to, the Jewish law said if you were to touch that guy, the bleeding and everything, you'd be unclean. So the priest went around him because he wanted to keep the regulation. How wrong is that?
Well, that was his religion.
That was his religion. That was his, I wanted to do this because I wanted to say, hey, wake up. I wanted to shout a clarion call from the mountaintop and say, you know what? The whole judgmental thing, the whole we've got our boxes and we've got our walls of division, and we're better, and you have to join us if you want. I wanted to say that's wrong. That's always been wrong. And it's not just Jesus who said it. It was like every enlightened soul really who came with this saturated, infused mind of otherworldliness has noticed these things. And once you let's go back to it. Once you see that freedom on someone's face, that bliss, that peace, that joy that is otherworldly, something inside you says, that's it. That's it. That's what I want. And so that's all I wanted to say today. It's not about rules and regs. It's not about he said, she said, or you're outside, the group, you're not in the church, or you're not in the temple. It's all about love.
Yeah, it's a big house. It's
a big house with many rooms.
It's a big house with many rooms, right?
He's quoting a scripture, but I like how he quoted it because
I wasn't even quoting it. It's just just God brings these things to my, these
recollection.
Because I've heard most everything by this time in my life, and he does bring things back that have stuck with me.
Are you getting up there in age?
No.
No? Did you have a birthday not too long ago?
I did. Don't ask me which one that was.
Okay, I won't ask you which one it was. What year were you born, though?
Don't ask me. It was so long ago, I don't remember.
Well, hey, this is good stuff, don't you think?
Well, yeah, because, you asked me to come by, and it's really easy to have other things that you have to do.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I was looking forward to coming by, and I'm so glad that it worked out and you let me finish what I wanted to do. I had to catch a couple waves before I showed up.
You caught some waves.
Yeah, well, it's just a de-stressor for me, and just, I did. And I love speaking about spiritual things because it is, I still believe it's like the most important aspect of those, because we are spirit.
We are.
And
we're not our body. We're not even our mind. We are a soul essence living inside of this body.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do, and this is the mission state. If I have to do a mission statement and put up some walls,
you might have to now.
I might have to. I wanted to say Streams of Light Podcast, what it's about is awakening to who we really are. We're not this body. We're not this mind. We are a soul essence that is a divine offshoot. It's a divine spark. And some people say, hey, you are love. You are bliss. Well, there is an old text that says God is love. And if we came from that ultimate source, then guess what? We are love. And if we are love, I'm not going to say what in the F, but what are we doing? We need to wake up and we need to go out into the world. Look at the trees, look at the wind blowing through the trees, look at the flowers, look at the dogs and the cats and the people, look them in the eyes.
And do not walk around them.
Don't walk around them.
Don't walk around them.
Look them in the eyes, because
go ahead, introduce yourself.
Right.
Love them with what God's given you.
Right.
What you have.
Give your
Share
gifts.
it.
Right.
You can't take it with you.
You can't.
And, but you can in a way, because if you share it, it's just, seems like it just comes back to you.
It just comes back to you. Pressed down, shaken, the whole thing. Here we are.
So.
This is Breon Parento. I'm Chris Anthony. It's Streams of Light Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Well, thanks to everyone who joined us. Until next time.